Russia's economy is falling apart under sanctions, and Putin is now trying to act like a peace broker between Iran and the US. We'll look at what's really going on behind the headlines. Let's unpack the details and put you in focus on these hot events. This is UATV. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and socials for the latest news and unique stories. The Russian economy continues to thrive under sanctions. If by thrive you mean cannibalizing equipment, grounding planes, slashing investments and watching entire industries crumble. From coal mines to oil rigs, from grounded aircraft to abandoned electronics plants, it's innovation, the 19th century way. We take a closer look at how safe isolation is working out. Spoiler alert, it's not.
The Russian dictator is once again trying to position himself as a mediator in negotiations between Iran and the United States. According to Axios, citing its sources, Putin is now urging Tehran to accept Washington's demand to halt uranium enrichment.
Putin would support zero enrichment. He encouraged the Iranians to work towards that in order to make negotiations with the Americans more favorable. The Iranians said they won't consider it. From Axios reporting,
for a long time, Moscow had been Tehran's main diplomatic ally. But now, while Russia publicly defends Iran's right to develop its nuclear program, Putin has made yet another policy shift, this time to signal loyalty to the White House. Experts say this is typical behavior for him. When Iran was useful to the Kremlin as a source of drones and military technology, Moscow promoted the idea of a strategic partnership. But now, after the 12-day war with Israel and American airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, Putin seems to be trying to regain favor with the U.S. president. Donald Trump recently launched a scathing attack on the Russian dictator for refusing to end the war in Ukraine and said he is seriously considering new sanctions on Russia.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. We get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Despite its formal strategic partnership with Iran, experts believe Russia won't come to its longtime allies' aid, now or in the future. The war in Ukraine is draining Moscow's resources and attention.
Iran and Russia operate under the logic that their security isn't mutually dependent, though they do cooperate in certain specific areas. But in the event the Ayatollah regime in Iran is at risk of collapsing, the help they could expect from Russia wouldn't be much more than what Assad got. It's unlikely the Russian Federation would seriously go out of its way to save a drowning ally.
Putin has no permanent friends or enemies, only interests. When Russia controlled Assad's regime in Syria, its military bases and supply routes operated there. But when that regime began to collapse, Russia simply stepped aside. After Assad fled to Russia in December 2024, Kremlin propaganda was quietly instructed to erase all mention of the former Syrian dictator. The Kremlin also failed in its attempt to stop Turkey from mediating peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. On July 10th, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan held direct talks in Abu Dhabi. Russia wasn't even considered as a mediator. Its relationships with both Yerevan and Baku have deteriorated significantly.
Russia now depends on countries like Azerbaijan to bypass Western sanctions. That means Moscow is reliant on partners like Baku, giving those countries stronger bargaining power. Russia has long wanted a role in the Zangezur corridor project. It even proposed deploying its border guards there, which would have given it significant leverage. But both Armenia and Azerbaijan appear to have agreed. They don't want Russia involved. Sylvia Stober, South Caucasus expert, in an interview with Deutsche Welle.
As a result, Russia is losing its influence in the Middle East and apparently in the South Caucasus as well. Finland's president recently called Putin a strategic and military failure. Alexander Stubb believes Putin made a fatal mistake by launching a full-scale war against Ukraine. His goal was to break NATO and spread chaos in the European Union, but he achieved the opposite. The EU is more united than ever. NATO has new members, and the alliance is increasing defense spending and military capabilities. Meanwhile, Russia is now seen as the biggest threat to European security. Reported by Natalia Husek, Volodymyr Stengelov, UATV News.
Do you know the best mediator, a peacemaker in the whole world? I know one, and you probably do too, because his role has long been known, and in fact it's very deceptive. The Russian dictator is once again trying to play the role of global statesman, now urging Iran to take the US nuclear demands seriously. Yes, the same Putin who's been cheerleading Tehran's enrichment program for years now want to hit the brakes, because apparently loyalty is flexible when sanctions and international isolation start to sting. More in our report.
The Russian coal industry is incurring significant losses due to Western sanctions. According to data from the Federal State Statistics Service, in 2024, half of the coal enterprises in the aggressor country were unprofitable. The general director of the Russian Coal Holding stated that the industry is experiencing its most severe crisis since the 1990s. The primary cause is a decline in demand. The European Union banned imports of Russian coal, and China has reduced its purchases. Additionally, equipment shortages have compounded the issue.
Before 2022, the coal industry relied heavily on mining equipment from Europe, the US, and Japan. Technological restrictions on Russia since the start of the war have severed access to these critical supplies. Initially, there was hope that Chinese suppliers could fill the gap left by the withdrawal of Western companies. The quality of Chinese equipment often falls short of industry expectations, though, and availability remains limited, according to the people familiar with the situation from a publication by Bloomberg.
According to sources cited by the publication, the coal industry has begun practicing so-called cannibalization, dismantling some machines to repair others. This method has long been entrenched in Russian aviation. After the halt of component imports due to sanctions against the aggressor country, Russia has failed to create domestic equivalents. As a result, the number of operational aircraft in Russia's fleet is steadily declining. This also affects flight safety.
At the start of the hot phase, the Russians had around 1,000 to 1,200 aircraft that were airworthy, including Airbus, Boeing, Bombardier, and Embraer, as well as remnants of Soviet-era aviation. A year later, there were only about 700 aircraft. By the beginning of 2024, the number was down to around 515 or 518. And by the start of 2025, reports indicated only about 380 to 330 planes remain.
Among the sectors most severely impacted by the restrictions are agriculture and the oil and gas industry. Vessels transporting Russian oil face repair difficulties. The shortage of components is also slowing the development of new wells.
The oil and gas industry relies on technologies for extracting respective resources and corresponding equipment. This equipment is no longer supplied today, nor are the technologies, and therefore everything is, so to speak, in a suspended state at the moment.
While the Kremlin is prepared to allocate resources to restore the oil and gas industry, other civilian sectors of the economy are not a priority. The head of Sberbank, German Gref, stated that in the first half of 2025, the bank did not finance a single investment project.
We know about the, well, not yet seizure, but nationalization of Uzhhorod-Zoloto, Russia's largest gold mining enterprise. Every oligarch, in principle, understands that they could be next. When Putin lacks money for the war, he will accordingly start taking money from you. What will this lead to? It has already led to the fact that virtually all oligarchs have cut their investment programs. Why invest if tomorrow they will come and take it away?
The reduction of investments, combined with the decline in oil and gas revenues, has led to the curtailment of import substitution projects. The Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade announced a 5-fold reduction in the state program for the development of the electronics and radio electronics industry. Within this initiative, they plan to replace about 40% of electronic components in the Russian market. Reported by Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.
Is Putin's Kremlin just a sign of weakness or a dangerous game with global consequences? And how long before his so-called mediating turns into another power grab? We'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Drop them in the comments. Stay in focus with UATV and stay safe.